All our fears, pretty much, is smoke and mirrors. It's not going to happen. It's not going to, anything that you're afraid of is never going to happen. It's there to teach you these lessons. But to get rid of this is you sit with it, you acknowledge it, and say, own that fear right now. And then you say, I don't want to be this way. And you do that enough times. When you start doing that enough times, eventually you will realize, okay, fine. You can just do it like, in the moment you can feel already, you feel like, yeah, okay, nothing's going to happen. It's okay, you got to sit with it. But what happens, why we kind of latch onto these things and we can't let go of it is because we are resisting it, right? We're so scared of this thing that we're running away from it, but we don't even know what we're running away from and we're so scared, we're just scared of everything, right?
Hello and welcome to the Disrupt the Everyday podcast. We're here to help you navigate life while disrupting the status quo. Our discussions cover a number of topics relevant to everyday life. We discuss everything from relationships to entrepreneurship. We also engage in some difficult but important conversations. And now, here are your hosts, Brian and Tanya Hamilton.
Welcome to another episode of the Disrupt the Everyday podcast. On today's episode, we're joined by Helen Muller. Helen, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, both of you.
No, we appreciate you taking the time. Now, we always like to start by learning a little bit about the person we're having a conversation with. So, first thing we're going to ask you, who is Helen Muller?
It is the most complicated question. Well, I thought, I can break it into different sections because I'm a multi-dimensional human being. So for me, there's the one part of me is the science and spirituality. And then I've got my kind of job part or career part. And then I would say my fun part. So the fun part of me is I'm a traveler and I am a free spirit. So I've traveled, my whole life since I've been 18. I left South Africa. And I never stopped traveling. And my career side is I'm a DNA upgrade specialist. And I'm also an entrepreneur coach. And I'm sure we're going to talk more about that. And then on the spirituality and science side of things is I believe that, or I know that I'm an individuated unit of consciousness, part of the larger consciousness system. And that also kind of ties in with the DNA upgrade, where I believe that we're data, and so we need to kind of upgrade our inner technology. So I believe I'm a tiny little part of the big consciousness system.
All right, well, let's start there. What is a DNA upgrade?
Well, it's a method that I use. If you can take the word and break it up, it's upgrading the DNA. So I improve the functioning of your DNA with this technique, and it's called DNA upgrade, and it's energy psychology. So I use a light coded language to then communicate with a person's genes. And so it's got two parts to it. So one part is removing the blocks, and the other part is then affecting the readout of the genes to then, make better building blocks. And I always ask people what do you think your DNA does? Before I kind of go into the whole complicated things, I can ask you guys the same thing. What do you think? If you think about your own DNA, do you ever think about, what it can actually do, or how do you see it?
Yeah, I have to say, honestly, I hadn't put too much thought into it before today. but no, I figure it just kind of determine some things about your makeup. I'm sure it has some impact on personality, but I hadn't thought about it too much beyond that.
Mm-hmm. I think that is kind of an important thing to note, because a lot of people go through their lives thinking that, we were taught that our genes create our biology. It's kind of a determinist way. So if if your mother had the cancer gene, then you think, okay, you can have the cancer gene, right?
Right.
The thing is, we can all have the cancer gene, but it doesn't mean that we need to express that gene. So that's the kind of the different thing. And the DNA upgrade is also based on the science of epigenetics. Now, epi means above the genes. and how that works is kind of, it affects the how you interpret things in your life. That affects the readout of the genes. So you can have the cancer gene, I can have the cancer gene, but I might not express it, and you might express this gene. So that's why how we live and our environment, that's why that is so important when it comes to expressing genes. And before, our power was kind of taken away, where, if you believe you have the cancer gene, then you're going to get cancer, right? But it is not like that. And that's why we have so much control over these things. And our DNA is just a blueprint. It's just a blueprint. And if you think about, say, for example, you have a house that has a design, it has a blueprint, and you want to add, a kitchen now to this house. So you have this design, but to actually build this, you must instruct this blueprint to make this kitchen. And our DNA is exactly the same. So you might have these mental blocks. So what I do with the DNA upgrade is I remove the mental blocks, and I do this with energy, so I can feel where a person's blocks is in their body when I do it remotely. And then so you might have these blocks, and you might want to change something, but you can't, because you can't access that information. Like, say, for example, this information about this blueprint about the kitchen, you can't access that information to actually start building this thing. So it works like that. So when I do the DNA upgrade, I work with information from your higher consciousness, and then that information then communicates with the genes to then make the building blocks, to then affect the change that you want to affect.
So I guess, okay, that's a lot for somebody like me. So when you're working with people, what are some of the changes that these individuals are looking for?
Well, everybody wants to improve their life. So people come with ideas about blocks that they have, but the reality of this is, we all have unlimited amount of blocks. But the changes that people, it's from physical changes, like if they have health things, maybe you have you can have a physical change. Most people start experiencing kind of, I would say, elevated consciousness. So their intuitive abilities improve. For example, they would before feel very connected to spirit, or to source, or to God. And then, especially after COVID, a lot of people started feeling very numb, very disconnected, kind of lost in life, can't feel themselves anymore, don't know what they're doing pretty much anymore. So this also kind of reconnects you to that, to that part of yourself, so you can kind of have a bit of purpose again, a bit of direction. And it gives clarity, helps to focus, helps to concentrate. And then obviously increases the productivity, the efficiency as well because of this. And it's also a detoxification of the body. So all of those mental blocks that you had, it's kind of, it's stuck in your body, so in your energy system. And this creates all like this toxicity in the body. So it also kind of clears out that. And then that just opens up, a lot of things for people as well. And relaxation. It's a very relaxing feeling. So people who struggle with anxiety or even depression, it kind of gives you an overall feeling of well-being. Yeah, that's probably the main things.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks for clarifying.
Yeah, and you're also an entrepreneur coach. So does a lot of the work that you do with the DNA upgrading, is that kind of a direct correlation to the work that you do with entrepreneurs?
Yes, because I'm an entrepreneur, my journey kind of went that way. And the thing is, it's all about efficiency for me. It's kind of how to quickly get results, because entrepreneurs are busy. They don't have time to sit around or go for hours and hours of therapy and things like that. And my idea with kind of working with these natural biohacks, of which the DNA upgrade is one, is I don't believe that you necessarily have to kind of delve into all your problems, even with trying to be more efficient or productive. I think if we can help ourselves and just kind of like unlock things or understand, I would say maybe more understand how our bodies work, because we've been given this vessel, right? And it's got like all these tools and things. It's like this inner technology, but we not got to use it. That's the thing. That's why I asked you that question about, what do you think your DNA does? Because it's just like there, but you can actually do something with it. You can actually use it. So yes, with the entrepreneurship, it comes in handy with that, just based on the efficiency part, the time and time constraints that entrepreneurs have. And also unlocking like the potential and the ideas if they have any blocks. But some people always ask me, what's the mental block, the biggest mental block that people come to me with, and it's relationships. And maybe that would tie in with, more about what you guys focus on as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting you say that, right? Because, I mean, you said you're in Portugal right now. We're in the dead of winter. I was saying to you today, I think like the coldest day of the winter right now. And, the season, and that can actually be such a block for people, right? Just the winter, the darkness, the shorter days and all that kind of stuff, right? And that motivation can, I find, like, if it's going to happen at any point in the year, it's usually winter where the motivation starts to lack a little bit, and not as much movement and all that kind of stuff, right? So to see that, you may not see the seasonal piece being in Portugal, but do you ever work with people, or have you ever, just looked into that and just the productivity and how that can relate to the seasons?
Absolutely. I have, one of my first clients actually is from the UK, and he was quite depressed because of this weather thing that you're mentioning. Obviously in the UK there's not a lot of sunshine, is there? And it did affect him. So yes, I mean, we worked on that, and it cleared up for him where he could actually get to a point where it doesn't affect him, either way when the winter comes. So yes, definitely I work with that.
And do you have any suggestions for people listening, like how, as an entrepreneur, especially because, it's different if you are an employee, you are, you have a job to do, you got to do it, or somebody else is going to take your spot. But as an entrepreneur, the only person really pushing you is yourself, right? So for people who aren't that motivated right now, do you have any suggestions, even just to help them through these next couple months?
I'm a big believer, this is like a practical technique I'm going to give, in just mind mapping.
Okay.
I do that for myself as well, because I think we overcomplicate things, right? So even if you just do a mind map for your, say, like you want to manage your energy, right? Because at the end of the day, this is what it's about. You've got this day, and sometimes you feel lethargic or whatever. So just make mind maps about it, and just keep it simple. I mean, people always say stay focused, but if you have too many things, and the thing is, our mind, and that's what is good about the mind mapping is when we see that picture of what we need to focus on, and you need to put it somewhere, where you can see it often, or if you've got a folder and like with a lot of mind maps, which I have, for different things, I go back and it's the same mind map. It doesn't change, because I know, the thing is, we do know what we need to do, don't we? We do know from experience, but we go in loops because we forget. We're always going to forget. So we just need reminders, and so for example, even if you have one technique that you've tried, like say for some people it's meditation, or for some person it might be exercise, but when you were going to the gym twice a week, you were performing better, right? So that should go on your mind map, because that's something that does work for you. So I think there's never a lack of what to do. It's just reminders. So if you can find a way to remind yourself, and I suggest mind mapping, to do this. Yeah, reminding yourself of what is important and what you need to focus on.
So yes, and just for anybody who may not know what a mind map is, like I haven't done the exercise for a while. I remember doing it at work, and it is really helpful. So can you just kind of explain what a mind map is for us?
Yes, I'm sure there's complicated ways of doing it. How I do it, keep it simple. So it's just like you say for example, now you want to manage your energy or be more productive. So because I know this is our mind map. So I would put in the middle, like just make a circle, and you would put in energy management, for example, and then you have legs that go out. So you would think about what is the most important things for you that work for you to manage your energy. So it might be exercise. So you you make the leg like a spider, and you put in exercise, and under that, then you can list kind of your activities. So we say, okay, fine. I'm going to the gym. I have a accountability partner. All these things like that could actually enforce you to do it. So it kind of need to be kind of like not just go running. Like you need to maybe like have a schedule or have a system, or have some kind of a goal attached to it. And then you do that with all the important areas. So for example, the other one would be fasting. So for example, for me, it might be fasting, because I know when I fast, I have more energy. So I would kind of have that leg to it, or time boxing, for example, for the productivity. So you would have that because it works. So you would kind of just have to ask yourself, okay, what's the most important things, and what would it take for me to now start implementing these again? And then you just do it. Yeah, you just have to look at it and do it.
But it's true, right? It's in your mind, but sometimes too, like people writing that down and just having it there to see. It's all, like you said, it's all like that basic stuff. We know that if we want to run, okay, sure, but you got to plan it out, right? We all know that life is busy, and if you don't actually put it in your calendar, if you don't time box that, then it's not going to happen, right? Mm-hmm. So it's just being really I guess it would be like strategic with what it is you want to do, and really holding yourself accountable, because nobody else is going to do it at the end of the day, right?
Exactly. And I think people always think, oh, I've got it in my mind. Yeah, go running. You need to exercise. Everybody talks about it all day long. But it's a matter of kind of focusing that and then having that picture. Like even now, I've got these pictures about my mind maps. In my, like I can just, if I think about certain mind maps I have, I see the entire mind map in front of me. And it's like your mind is incredible. It takes that picture, and after a while, it's the same with kind of mindset training. There's the 2 recordings, right? After a while, if you could almost, you can say this without even listening to it, because it runs like a tape in your mind. It's the same thing with the mind map pictures. It's in there, and you can even take a picture and put it on your phone as a screensaver or something. But as long as you look at it every day, because now a lot of people have the mind map, then you look at it. Mm-hmm. So you gotta that's another part of it as well. But it's fun, I love to do mind maps because it organizes your mind, and the simpler you make it, the better.
Absolutely. I remember actually probably the last time I did one was when we were starting this podcast. I don't think I told you about that, but it was really helpful in just kind of structuring things and getting things planned out. So definitely a good tool. Yeah. Just some other things in terms of productivity, because you've mentioned that a lot as well. So another thing you do is you help entrepreneurs and people in general, I think, just to be productive. So what are some of the things that you see as common challenges that you help people address, or again, just anything that you can share with regards to productivity? All of us want to be more productive.
I think managing your emotions, because as I said before, you think these entrepreneurs come to me with something about productivity, but it's sometimes relationships and things like that, right? something unrelated. So I think if when it comes to productivity, you need to be quite strict with how much energy you give to certain areas of your life. You kind of have a look at that. I mean, you can do a mind map about that as well. kind of have to look at, I see, is it really, I want to reach this goal, right, in my business or so my business, I want to reach this goal. But how much time am I actually spending on this? Because everybody wants to have this work-life balance, right? But at the end of the day, if you want to reach that goal, you got to kind of have a look at, where is your energy going? Most of your energy is going. Is it really necessary? I mean, is it going to take away from you to, be more disciplined on how you spend this energy? You can still have, because some people think, say, for example, you spend now less time with your family. I would say that. So, but you might spend more quality time. So you have to look at things like that in like again, and that's where the kind of focus and the mind mapping comes in, for example, is what is the quality of the things that you do? And again, so that's why I work with these natural biohacks as well, is because with the DNA upgrade, it's the quality of that information that is the important part. Because you can constantly be consuming. There's so much information out there, and we are constantly consuming this information. But it's about really stopping yourself and saying, you're going to stop yourself in these moments every day and say, okay, pause. What am I doing here? I'm just consuming, right? What is this? Is this actually like helping me with what I'm trying to accomplish? Or I'm just like, I'm just available for my family, for example. Versus, what is the quality? What am I bringing to, is it quality time that I'm actually spending? I think that's a kind of a thing I would say is worth looking at when it comes to productivity, because there's so many tools. I mean, we all know what to do once again, but I think it's just stopping yourself in the moment and also saying, I don't want to be like this. Mm-hmm. When you notice like you're doing something, you got to stop yourself and say, I don't want to be like this, because we go around in loops. We think we're actually changing, but we're not. And we look back, it's kind of just a different, it looks a little different, but it's the same thing that we keep like looping, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. And it's that energy too, like you said, it's really important, because I think in our society, we're all about the yes, and we're quick to say yes for many things, and really slow on those no's, because we don't want to offend people, especially when it's work related, right? But also personal in those relationships. And then you said yes now to something without looking back and trying to looking at your schedule and what it's all going to entail. And then next thing you know, you're feeling less productive because you're dreading what's about to happen, or you now don't have the energy that is needed, because all going back to the circle of you didn't want to offend somebody, or you didn't want to look like you weren't able to handle it, right? So I think like it's just so important really to just sit back, whether you're at work, whether it's personal. If somebody's asking you to do something, that answer doesn't always have to be yes. And it's also protecting yourself too. And going back to that productivity, like, what is that going to, is it going to benefit you? Is it going to, drag you down? Like, just so many things that I don't think we always take into account before we make some decisions in our life.
Yeah, because we're kind of on autopilot sometimes, isn't it? Mm-hmm. We're so used to doing things, and we have stories around it, Tonya. It's we like to tell stories to ourselves. Yeah. And we think we're so smart with these stories because we can come up with these elaborate explanations and justifications for why we do things. And it's important to have compassion with yourself as well. I mean, we're not meant to get to some destination. That's the other part of it. It's like this whole hustle culture is also, I think, it's dying this year. I mean, it's the energy of this 2023 is not about this hustle thing anymore.
Right.
Which is good. I'm grateful for this, because it put a lot of stress, it put a lot of pressure on people, to always get to some end goal, to always, think that they're going to get somewhere. And this year, I think it's more compassion. It's more about the inner growth and the inner journey that is important.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And I also think too, like just from the pandemic and, things like that, people really had a chance to just reevaluate so many things in their life, right? All the priorities and what that looks like. And now there comes the reevaluation, and then now it's time to make the actual change, right?
Yeah.
So we can want something, but you actually now have to go and make those changes. So whether it's maybe changing employment, changing the hours you work, in down here we're dealing with the recession, they're calling it, right? So changing the spending, just so many different things that, what, life is here, and if you keep trying to chase that, it may, without making any changes, it may not be a good ending, I guess, right? You may not get what you want, but we all know it's difficult to sometimes enforce the changes, but it's always so needed.
And I don't know how you feel, but it's almost like post-COVID, we are forced to change our lives completely now. I feel like that about my life as well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's almost like, yes, you came out of it, and then of course there's changes because the world has changed. But on the inside, it's almost like you can't hide away from yourself anymore, right? It's almost like you're really being pushed to kind of turn your life around, or things that you kind of, I would say, what was kind of more, you'll see to that, it's not that bad, or whatever,
right.
Things that you want to change. And now you're like, well, you feel like kind of a pressing feeling, like you got to do it. You got to find a way. And I think people are all looking for new ways to do this. I think people are kind of forced to look at themselves in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
Now I see this a lot, and it's also causing a lot of depression for people, which I've noticed, because people feel like really feel stuck, and they feel, they don't know which way to go. And especially because on the outside, I don't watch the news because, I think there's enough, going on for them to be constantly reminded of everything else in the world as well. But yeah.
No, absolutely. Now, I guess one thing that you kind of mentioned that I want to dive into a little bit deeper is you talked about a lot of the entrepreneurs you talk to. One of their blocks is just relationships. Can we dive into that a little bit more? Yes.
Well, I think relationships are our biggest challenge in life, isn't it? Be it at work, be it at home, be it our relationship with ourselves. So how I believe is that every relationship on the outside is a reflection of our relationship with ourselves on the inside. So it's not a surprise for me, when entrepreneurs come to me with these blocks, because again, if you have an engineering mind, or you've kind of like an entrepreneur in general, you're already going to have those techniques, for the being focused and hustle and doing all these things. But maybe you're not as focused on the inner things or on the relationship side, because, that kind of gets put to the side a little bit. Especially, I think maybe men also struggle with that sometimes more, because the women, we're more intuitive, right? And we kind of, when we have relations with things, we like focus on it to fix it. Where a man, I think sometimes, well, leave it, we'll deal with it. So so it's those blocks with the relationships. But again, everybody has it, and I find it quite brave of male entrepreneurs when they come out with these, kind of open up about these things, which they then, want to improve, because again, that's a reflection of your inner need to resolve these things as well. So in essence, you are saying, well, I desire to have a better relationship with myself. And in the collective energy of the world, of humanity, it's a good, it's also a good thing that these things get cleared as we go forward. Yeah.
All right,
Did
and
that
then
answer your question?
yeah, that definitely helps. Now, the other thing that you said a lot is just in reference to emotion. So when we're in a difficult place emotionally, do you have anything that you can share with us to help us kind of get out of that, I guess, that funk or that emotional block?
Yes, one of the natural biohacks that I work with is called EFT tapping. I don't know if you've heard of it or you know what it is. So EFT tapping, it's like acupuncture, like it's like on pressure points. So, but you tap yourself. So it works on the meridian, on the energy meridians of the body. And if you can, so for example, think of your body as like the energy is a cluster of light bulbs. And one of these light bulbs fuse, like fuse, and it can, it can affect like the whole body, right? No, it's the same with that. So when you do this tapping, you regulate this energy meridians, these energy systems in your body, and it just works on like these pressure points. So you would have like there's one there, you would have one here under the eye, and like under the nose and there, and then here like this, and then on the top of under the arm, and then on top of the head. So you do it like that. But say for example you have an issue, so you kind of first focus this issue. You say like you kind of focus the issue, and then you release it by going through this process. But yeah, there's a lot of videos on YouTube as well. People can follow it, and it's a quick method that you can use to just kind of balance that emotional energy that you have.
That's interesting. I've never heard of that.
Yeah, anybody can do it, so people should check it out. So it's a quick way to do it. What else can I give for emotion? Well, this is an easy technique. It's just to write, writing is very good for you to do. So when you feel something, and again, this is going to take work, you have to do it. So you have to catch yourself in the moment when you feel something. So I feel it's, most of us have all these fears that we live with. So you could be like, okay, I'm afraid. So you need to admit that to yourself. You can also write it down. Catch yourself in the moment. So you say, I am afraid of being bankrupt. And you like sit with that, because this is the emotion that wells up in you. But these fears that you have and these emotions that comes from this, it affects everything in your life. Like all the actions that you take, maybe how you speak, what you do, like everything, your productivity even. But if you catch yourself enough times when you have this emotion coming up, and you like admit that, acknowledge that to yourself, is I am afraid. I'm afraid of being bankrupt. And you sit with that, and you say to yourself, I don't want to feel this way. I don't want to feel this way, and I don't want to be this way. It's important that you acknowledge that you are being. This is becoming part of your being, because when you kind of adopt a fear, or you have these fears in your life, most of the times it's just smoke and mirrors. All our fears pretty much is smoke and mirrors. It's not going to happen. It's not gonna, anything that you're afraid of is never going to happen. It's there to teach you these lessons. But to get rid of this is you sit with it, you acknowledge it, and say, own that fear right now. And then you say, I don't want to be this way. And you do that enough times. When you start doing that enough times, eventually you will realize, okay, fine. You can just do it like, in the moment you can feel already, you feel like, yeah, okay. Nothing's going to happen. It's okay. You got to sit with it. But what happens, why we kind of latch onto these things and we can't let go of it, is because we are resisting it, right? We're so scared of this thing that we're running away from it, but we don't even know what we're running away from, and we're so scared, like we're just scared of everything, right? But once you see, okay, fine, just own it. I think that's a good technique for emotion as well, because a lot of the emotions come from the fears.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, it's a really simple technique, and I never really thought of that, but it is very true what you say. Many of the things that we fear, many of the things that we get anxious about, never come to fruition. So I like that idea of actually documenting it, because you can always look back on that, and it's a reminder that these things that we're oftentimes worried about don't end up amounting to anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can also then track yourself. So if you have you can have that page of like, okay, I'm afraid of being bankrupt or something. I mean, and this has nothing to do with how much money you have. A lot of people, there's like billionaires are like have that exact same fear. But if you write it down, you kind of track yourself. So eventually you will see, and you can also ask this question when you write it out: what must I be believing about myself that makes me feel this way? Kind of important when you kind of really start thinking about that. So what must I be believing? It could be different for a different person. But then when you track it, then eventually you will start noticing that it has less weight, and it will change. That's, you must believe that it will change. When you say to yourself, I don't want to be this way.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you feel, okay, well, if I don't want to be this way, then I must start acting differently, right? Or I must start thinking differently. But it has a different feeling to it when you really say to yourself, I don't want to be this way. It makes you feel so like, use the word powerful, but it just kind of like really sticks better when you have that feeling. Rather than having in your mind, oh, I shouldn't be like this, like it's all kind of up there in the clouds. You got to bring it back to yourself.
Yeah, and then by doing it that way, you're not suppressing the feelings, right? Because eventually you can put it aside, but it's going to keep coming up. Whereas the way you're explaining it, you sit with it, you process that, you think, you write it down, you just, I guess you could say, attack it straight on, right? Then it's dealt with. And if you do have those feelings again, you can go back to that. It's, I think a lot of times people will just say, or people not necessarily say, but do, and just, okay, here's a fear. Let me just push it aside for now because I have too many other things to deal with. But we know it's going to come again. It's going to come up. So.
Yeah, it is worth it. It's worth it to spend that time. Yeah, you have to spend time with yourself. Sometimes it's painful. That's the thing. Doing the inner work and doing the work is painful. But at the end of the day, it's going to be worth it. It's going to be worth it because, again, you're just going to go around in the loop of doing the same thing, and then you're going to reach the end of your life, and you're going to be like, "Oops, I missed the bus there." It's okay, though. There's, as I said, there's no real right and wrong. So we do need to have compassion, but if we know what to do, and we can find ways to discipline, simple and easy and fun ways as well. That's why I do the mind mapping, for example. It's fun for me. You see how I laugh and get excited. I was thinking about the next mind map I'm gonna make because I like because I have to do the same things that I help my clients with, right? I need to have that same discipline. If I tell them to do the mind map, I do the mind mapping. I do everything, even all the biohacks I use. I use everything on myself as well to this day because I forget as well, and I need those reminders.
I think the mind mapping too is would be neat to share with kids, right?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Because especially getting that and having it figured out, like, okay, this is how I want to do in this subject, or these are the grades I want to get. What do I have to do? We have the conversations, but it will be so helpful to introduce it as mind mapping, and for them to figure out and pluck or put where everything needs to go.
Yeah. This is a good thing. You should try it out. Let me know how it goes with your kids. How old are your kids? How old are the kids?
So we have 4. Our oldest is 13, and then we have the twins. They're 11, and then our youngest is 6. So yeah, I was thinking they're like the older ones are at a great age for that.
Yeah.
That's good for them. Everybody's different as well. Some people are more creative, and that's I'm also got a bit of creative, but I'm also like a bit of a system engineer thinker as well. So I think that is good, and it's also good to know yourself and your strengths. So it might not, some people it might not work for some people, but yeah, you can find ways.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. So for anyone who wants to learn more about the work you do and just be able to connect with you, what are the best ways to do that? I know that you have an online presence. So can you tell us a bit about that?
Well, I always send people only to my website because it's easy to remember, not too many things. But yeah, it's youmeandhappiness.com. So it's all written out, you, me, and happiness. So first start with you. And then because some people are like me and you and happiness. And like, I've had it all. So it starts with you, then me, and happiness.com. But all over social media, I'm at you, me, and happiness. And then I've got a YouTube channel, but I haven't been that active on it. But it's You, Me, and Happiness, Helen Muller. You can find all this information on the website as well.
Awesome. Well, Helen, we appreciate you taking the time to join us today. We thank you for sharing your insights with us. And for everyone who watched or listened, thank you for letting us disrupt your everyday.
Thank you so much, Brian and Tanya. I appreciate you. And it was so lovely to chat to you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Disrupt the Everyday podcast. For more ways to listen, connect with us on social media. To be a guest or to partner with us, check out our link tree at Disrupt the Everyday. Join us next time for more ways to disrupt the everyday.